More than 2 years into the pandemic, parts of China are still in and out of COVID-19 lockdowns. In the last few months, traders and bankers in Shanghai slept in their offices to continue working amid a lockdown. Factory workers have been told to live and work on site intermittently when cases surge. Just this month, China locked down the popular resort island of Hainan after authorities declared it a COVID-19 hotspot, stranding 80,000 tourists. China's long-drawn exit from pandemic lockdowns is worrying economists and policymakers. China is the world's second-largest economy and a manufacturing powerhouse, so investors and businesses are concerned about the continued restrictions' impact on economic activities. Let's dive into the full details of the worrisome policy, how the social stand against COVID has become more important than its economic impact. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Also, let us know what you think in the comment section. More than 2,000 tourists have been stranded in a Chinese coastal city after a surge in coronavirus cases. Officials in Beihai locked down urban areas and ordered the mass testing of its 1.9 million residents over the weekend. It comes as concerns grow about the impact of China's zero-COVID policy on the world's second-largest economy. Last week, official figures showed the country's economy shrank in the second quarter of this year as COVID-19 restrictions hit firms and consumers. Beihai, which is a popular summer destination in China's southern Guangxi region, recorded more than 450 infections in the 5 days to July 16th. While that level of cases may seem low by international standards, it is considered high under the Chinese government's approach to the pandemic. On Sunday, Beihai's local government said tourists who had not been in contact with anyone who had contracted the virus or visited medium or high-risk areas would be allowed to leave if they showed a negative COVID-19 test. The rest must stay in the city and be quarantined, officials told a news conference. The major financial, trade and manufacturing center only reopened in June after a 2-month lockdown. It is one of several large Chinese cities that are tackling new clusters of infections. The COVID situation in China has worsened slightly on a national level over the past week, Japanese banking giant Nomura said in a note on Monday. Based on our own survey, 41 cities are currently implementing full or partial lockdowns or some kind of district-based control measures, which involve stringent measures restricting the mobility of local residents, analysts Ting Lu, Jing Wang and Harrington Zhang said. These 41 cities make up 18.7% of China's population and 22.8% of China's GDP, gross domestic product, they added. On Friday, government data showed the country's economy contracted sharply in the second quarter of this year as widespread coronavirus lockdowns had a major impact on businesses and consumers. GDP fell by 2.6% in the 3 months to the end of June from the previous quarter. Large cities across China, including Shanghai, were put into full or partial lockdowns during this period as the country continues to pursue its zero-COVID policy. GDP or gross domestic product is one of the most important ways of showing how well or badly an economy is doing. It's a measure of all the activity of companies, governments, and individuals in an economy. Prudential reported that its Hong Kong division suffered a steep fall in new business profits in the first half of the year because of China's strict zero-COVID policy, as the insurer warned of challenging and complex market conditions for the rest of 2022. The FTSE 100 Group announced its global half-year results from Hong Kong for the first time on Wednesday. It said Hong Kong new business profits, a critical measure of predicted earnings on newly sold products, fell 31% in the first 6 months of the year to $211 million. Profits from new mainland Chinese customers that crossed the border to buy insurance policies in Hong Kong were $694 million before the pandemic in 2019, but fell to almost nothing this year, the Asia-focused insurer said. Prudential warned that there was prolonged uncertainty about when the border between Hong Kong and China, which has been closed for more than 2 years because of the pandemic, would be reopened. The economic dislocations are now spilling into the larger world, fueling inflation, disrupting supply chains, triggering a retreat or pause by some foreign businesses in China, and increasing external concern over China's deepening isolation, wrote J. Stephen Morrison, Scott Kennedy, and Yinjung Wang for the Center for Strategic and International Studies, a U.S.-based think tank, on June 27. The prolonged restrictions are already taking their toll on China's economy. Top leaders told government officials in late July that the country may not hit its 5.5% growth target this year, Bloomberg reported, citing people familiar with the matter. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund in July downgraded its global growth forecast to 3.2% in 2022, lower than the 3.6% it had early predicted in April, citing lockdowns in China as a contributing factor. There could be more pain ahead, as it'll likely be well into 2023 before China lifts its zero-COVID approach, according to the Eurasia Group, with aggressive testing and lockdowns continuing to stave off a public health crisis, but not an economic slowdown. China's vaccination rate is high, with almost 90% of its population fully vaccinated, according to the Johns Hopkins Coronavirus Resource Center. But elderly vaccination rates have lagged behind the national average, with just 61% of those above 80 years ago immunized, China's National Health Commission reported in a July update. Reports accounting for vaccine hesitancy among China's elderly are sparse, but reasons include concerns about safety, adverse reactions, and the low incidence rate of COVID-19 in the country, according to a study of 92 individuals in China, including those 60 and over, published in the Vaccines Journal in November 2021. And China has not yet developed its own mRNA vaccine, which is hampering the country's exit from the pandemic. Most Chinese are inoculated with inactivated vaccines. In a bid to bolster public confidence in homegrown vaccines, a top official for the China National Health Commission said in late July that China's state and party leaders have all been vaccinated against COVID-19 with made-in-China vaccines, Reuters reported. Vaccination in elderly populations will improve in the coming months, but will not be sufficient to eliminate overall health risks for this population, wrote Eurasia Group analysts in a July 25 note. While China can import vaccines as a quick fix, it's of national interest to develop its own mRNA vaccine and not have to rely on imports, experts say. Beyond that, it's also about ensuring the country has the technology in place for the next outbreak. It's not just about national pride, but also so that vaccine manufacturers will know what to do in the next pandemic, Bo Zhuang, a senior sovereign analyst with Boston-based investment management firm Loomis Sayles, told Insider. The Chinese government doesn't want to have to subsidize companies in developing this technology from scratch the next time a pandemic comes around, he told Insider. He estimates China is likely to end lockdowns only after Chinese New Year, which will be in late January 2023. Beijing is counting on imported COVID-19 treatments over vaccines so it doesn't have to shift its narrative. Experts say China needs two things to start making its long journey out of COVID-0, imported treatments, and a change in public messaging. Even with COVID treatments, China will need to embark on a public messaging campaign to convince the Chinese people that health risks from both vaccination and therapeutics have become reduced, which is unlikely until well into 2023, said the Eurasia Group analysts. Given that the next meetings of the national legislature and the top political advisory body known as the two sessions take place in March 2023, the messaging will likely only quicken after this meeting, they added. Official messaging suggests a long trek out of zero COVID. Even if there are some temporary impacts on the economy, we will not put people's lives and health in harm's way, and we must protect the elderly and the children in particular, President Xi Jinping said in June, according to an official transcript. It is clear now where the president stands on the zero-COVID policy. The Chinese government has decided to favor social impact as compared to economic consequences. For the Chinese, it is a good stand as it would reduce the number of infections and deaths, of which China has recorded the most deaths. For the economy, however, the reverse is the case, both for China and the world at large. Let us know what you think about this brewing storm cloud in the atmosphere of the world economy. Also, make sure you hit the like button and be sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching.